topic I chose for the senior symposium was psychology of parenting, specifically emotional problems, toxic cycles, and how they could be avoided in the future. So the two quotes that I chose that I felt pertained to my topic and my perspective on it were the way you talk to your child becomes their inner voice, and children learn more from what you are than what you teach. So just to give some context, since not every parent relationship is the same, some people are raised by a single parent or another guardian like their grandmother, or they're adopted, but either way, there's a certain adult that has a big impact on you, and the way that they raise you is what affects you. So given this, and given that anything that they do has a big effect on you, it's definitely very important to examine it. So these are some factors that influence the way that someone parents their children. First could be the economic status that they have. For example, if they have to work two jobs, that gives them less time to spend with their child. However, every parent is going to do the best with what they have, but it's still a factor. The second factor is the readiness to be a parent. If they were kind of thrown into it and not as ready, that could affect the way that they parent. And third, and definitely the most influential, is the way that they were parented. And I'll get more into that as I go on. So first, we have to discuss what is an attachment style. Attachment style is essentially the way that you interact within your relationships and the way that you behave. So there are 4 kinds. There's secure, dismissive, avoidant, anxious, preoccupied, and fearful, avoidant. You can see here how each type of attachment style correlates with different traits. The ideal attachment style is the secure, which is in green, and it can be fostered from a very early age. So here's a chart of how each attachment style essentially occurs from the mother-child bond or just any parent or any guardian. So when the mother is consistent and is always showing that she's there for the child will develop a secure attachment in their future relationships. They won't be as anxious, as you can see in the other attachment styles, and you can see the results, the actions that caused the child to later be anxious in their later relationships or be avoidant and just not be able to securely be in any type of relationship, a friendship, or any type of relationship in the future. So the way that parenting works is very cyclical because it repeats itself. For example, many kids were parented using harmful methods that they then use on their kids later on because it's what they saw in their parents, and that's what they learned about parenting. And no spanking, no timeout, no problems. There's a quote that says, "The way that parents discipline their children is how children discipline their peers." For parents who are very sarcastic, a child will be very sarcastic with their peers. This is like a very simple example, but it goes down to toxic traits. So if the parent has a toxic trait, for example, if the parent is always saying, "Do it because I told you so," then that child might not give explanation to other people later in their life because they pick up their parents' traits. So therefore, punishments that are placed onto kids can actually be anti-corrective, so they can have the opposite of what the parents intended to do. For example, if a parent hits their kids, the kid might think that it's okay to hit other people because their parents said that it's just correcting behavior. I've noticed that either extreme of parenting can become harmful. Like if you're too this or too that. For example, under involvement or over involvement, no discipline or overly rigid discipline, lacking affection towards the child, and shaming the child. So just because this is a cycle that repeats itself doesn't mean it can't be broken, and there's research that proves this. The pattern that I recognized within the research was these steps. So first is recognizing the wrong behaviors that took place in the past within parents and guardians and how it affected you. Then the next step is healing, which is understanding these patterns, accepting what happened, and possibly going to therapy if that's needed. And then the third step would be shifting behavior, which is making a choice to intentionally change what has happened and intentionally choose a different route for you and your children. Thank you for listening. Any questions?